so much for coming to listen to my talk, and I hope that you enjoy it. So let me introduce myself here. I am Chelsea Connor. I am an artist, science communicator, herpetologist, and birder in my final undergrad semester, and I am from the Commonwealth of Dominica. Dominica, not the Dominican Republic, is in the middle of the island archipelago in the West Indies. It is 29 kilometers or 18 miles wide and 47 kilometers or 29.2 miles long. And the highest point is Mont Diablo, and that is 1,447 meters or 4,747 feet high. It is home to a lot of endemic species. That means species that can only be found on my island, and it is mostly covered by untouched forest. Dominica is a volcanic island. That means it was formed by volcanoes, and it was originally discovered and inhabited by the Kalinago people. It is one of the few islands in the Caribbean with a population of them still. The fauna of the island includes over 190 species of birds and 19 confirmed reptile species. There could be more, there can be a lot more, but because of how dense the forest is, it is hard to get in sometimes and hard to find things. 4 of the reptile species are confirmed to be endemics. Again, that means they're only found on my island, and that includes Anoles oculatus, the Dominican anole. This picture right here is one I took when I was back home on my research trip, and it is a freshwater lake that is at Mont Tuapitol National Park. Tuapitol means 3 peaks. That's Creole. That's one of the languages we speak on my island, and it is home to the second highest peak on the island, which is about 4,400 feet. Growing up in Dominica is my initial natural science inspiration. I would watch Discovery Channel with my dad, and we both loved hosts like Steve Irwin, but I never saw hosts that looked like me. And I didn't think I could do anything with animals. I thought I could only be behind the scenes, just making observations quietly. I have always been interested in working with animals and doing research and working with reptiles particularly. And I got the opportunity to work with Anoles last year, and I fell in love with them. And here I am holding one of the Anoles we're gonna talk about later. Off screen is one of my students that caught them, and she was a little bit nervous about holding it because sometimes they do try to nip you, but it's painless. So first off, what are Anoles? And subtext says, I don't know about these lizards. There's 2 ways to pronounce it, but I like pronouncing anole this way, especially for the puns that I like making. Anoles are lizards native to the tropical and subtropical regions of the Americas and the Caribbean. They are usually found in trees at varying levels, but they can be found in certain other habitats. They have a wide range of colors and patterns, and they also have a decent size variation between species. A notable feature of an anole is the dewlap on the males, which is that like fleshy bit of skin they can pull out and pull back in. And some females also have it, but it's usually a lot smaller on them. The name anole comes from the Kalinago name for the lizards, Anole, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, I'm not sure. And they also have the ability to drop their tails like other lizards if they're threatened. There's currently over 436 recognized species of anoles around the world, with many of them being understudied and threatened because of the very limited areas they live in. So there's small specific populations of them in like certain parts of forests, and it's very easy for them to be threatened by the current climate crisis or by habitat loss. So now we're gonna talk some more about anoles. Part 2, this tree won't stop me because I'll adapt. Subtext, I can change probably what every anole says. And here I have this meme. It's Anole looking at a tree, and then Anole saying, "This tree won't stop me because I'll adapt." Anoles are known and studied for adaptive radiation. That is a technical term to say that they can adapt to their environments really easily. That is when groups diverse or change to fit different roles and habitats. And they exist in different groups called ecomorphs. So here on the right, you can see a tree, and that tree has different ecomorphs on it here. So we start with the crown giant, we go down all the way to trunk ground, and then over here at the grass and bush, we have a grass bush anole. So ecomorphs are groups of anole with differences in their bodies that are adapted to specific habitats. So each one of these anoles have body differences that allow them to live specifically in that part of the tree. And a lot of studies show how quickly they can adapt to new habitats. So we're going to start with the crown giants. They're all the way at the top of the tree, and these are the largest anoles, and they can be found at the top of the tree. Sometimes they will come down to the lower branches, but they prefer to stay all the way up in the canopy. They are usually green, and they have very long tails and short limbs. The largest anole is Anoles equestris. That's on the left here. It's the Cuban night anole. And I have a better picture of that in the next slide. So the males can get up to 20 centimeters long from their nose all the way to their cloaca. So we take their body size. We don't include their tails because a lot of lizards drop their tails. So that would be hard to measure and compare to other lizards if we measure their tail length all the time. Females can get up to 16 centimeters. So that's the largest one that we know of. To the right here, we have the Puerto Rican giant anole. And this one is brown because it's an immature adult. A lot of juvenile or baby anoles are a different color from what they'll end up being when they get older. And he's happily eating a tarantula right now. And here's a better look at that Anoles equestris. You can see how short its arm is, and you can see its head is pretty big. The way that its eye is colored makes its eye look a lot bigger than it is as well, too, to help intimidate predators and scare them away. Next up, trunk, crown, and anoles. They are the next level down. And they are intermediately sized. So what that means is when you compare all of the anole sizes together, trunk, crown, anoles are gonna usually fall right in the middle, and they usually have the brightest colors. They occupy eye level areas of the tree trunk up to like the lower branches that you might not be able to see, and they also have long tails. In addition to having the brightest colors, they also have the most color change abilities. So these bright colored lizards you're looking at right now, they have the ability to darken up to where they're completely brown, sometimes even almost black. On the left, we have the turquoise anole from Jamaica, and you can see that its head is turquoise. It has a bright orange dewlap. There's a better picture of it coming up, but its tail fades into purple, and then sometimes even like brown all the way to the end, but the purple is really distinct. And then we have the blue-headed anole over on the right, and there's a lot of variation with that blue patterning on its head. Sometimes they look like this, where it's like, it looks like it's dipped in blue paint. Sometimes it'll be just on the sides of its face. And here are some other trunk crown anoles. Here we have the green anole from America that I'm sure a lot of you know. And you can see it has a similar pointy head to these other two next to it. And that's because they are proposed, that means scientists think they all have one common ancestor. So that's why they all have a similar little head shape going on. Then we have Anoles smaragdingus. That just means emerald green. So that's a green anole from the Bahamas. So it's the Bahamian sorry, green anole. And then this guy next here has the longest nose, and he is yet another green anole. He's a Cayman green anole. And I think this is probably, out of the entire group of anoles that are supposed to have the same ancestor, he has the longest one. Then it's this anole here, which is the Puerto Rican emerald. And he doesn't have that long nose. He's from a different group, but he's also trunk crown anole. And you can see that long tail. And I think this one is a juvenile because of that patterning on his back. It's not very common for adults unless it's a female. So here are a couple more. And here's that turquoise anole again. You can see the purple going down to its tail. And then here we have the Hispaniolan green anole. A lot of them are very bright green or have a lot of blue on them. And then lastly, the Crooked Island anole, another one that is related to the first three. And this one has lost its green. So all of them are brown with this shade of blue on them. And a way that they're different from the others, where the others, darken up and turn brown or black, this one will actually get a patch of intense blue right behind its eye. So it lost its green, but it gained blue in that way, and it's really unique and cool. There's a video of it that I couldn't get to put in here. Hopefully, I'll be able to tweet that link. So if you can follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to look at it. Next, it's the trunk anoles, and they are the anoles running around the tree trunk. They sometimes do overlap with the trunk crown and the trunk ground, but they do mostly stay somewhat in the middle. They are shades of brown and gray so that they can blend into the tree. And that, coupled with the fact that they spend a lot of time running around, they can be a little hard to spot or catch. On the left, we have the bark anole, rightly named because look at its patterning right there. It looks like tree bark, and I'll show you a couple pictures where it really is blended into the tree. And then we have the spiny anole on the right, and you can see he has these little like projections coming from him, which helps like mimic lichen on trees, which helps him blend in as well. And then here we go. These are all bark anoles, and this is showing the color variation in one species. They are possibly subspecies. I can get a lot of confirmation on that before I put this together, but you can see that this population right here on the left from Florida has some green in it, and then some others are more of that natural bark color. Some of them are even lighter in areas where there are lighter colored trees. Next up, on our tree, we have the trunk ground anoles. And trunk ground anoles have long hind limbs with well-developed muscles because they jump from the lower tree trunk to nearby rocks and around in those rocks, and then back to their tree. There are also varying shades of brown, possibly even gray. On the left is the anole from my island, and this one has an asterisk next to it because some populations of it are actually trunk crown anoles. So some populations are trunk ground and some are trunk crown. And then on the right is Anoles cristatellus. That is the Puerto Rican crested anole, and it is invasive on my island. So my research looks at both of these anoles, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit right now. So my research deals with niches and exclusion. So I'm gonna explain what a niche is. Organisms exist in niches. There's a lot of definitions, but what you need to know is at its most basic level, a niche is an organism's ecological role. So that's what it does in a habitat, in its environment. And then competitive exclusion, that means two species, competitive exclusion theory is when two species can't coexist or live together in the same role or niche, one will eventually die off as a result because they're both trying to get the same thing in that same space. So my research is looking at dietary niche overlap between the endemic anole on my island and the invasive anole. And that's another picture of the crested anole, the invasive one. This one dewlap is a bit darker, but they usually do have a bright orange dewlap. In order to conserve species, it is important to know what stresses and competitive pressures it faces. So what is acting to prevent its survival. And competition for prey, fighting for food, is really vital for an organism's survival. Its ability to be able to catch and eat food, and the fact of whether or not food is available at all. Right now, I found that there doesn't seem to be a lot of overlap between what they're eating, which is great. And I think it's because of that that difference in ecomorph between populations. So some populations of the native anole, the Anole, it is trunk crown and it has access to a whole different range of insects than the crested anole in those areas. And then a better look at the native anole on my island, the Dominican anole, or the Anole. It's called oculatus because of that spot on the left here that you see. All of them usually have this spot that looks like eye spots, and that's where the name comes from. So there are 4 ecotypes, and ecotypes are geographical differences between a species. So they're not subspecies, there's not enough differences between them for them to be subspecies, but depending on where you are, the species itself looks different. So they just have different colors and patternings, and sometimes they'll have different sizes depending on location. So South Caribbean is found in the south parts of my island, and it is smaller than all the others, and it has a bit of yellow, it's mostly brown. Then the montane is it's varying shades of green. This one that we found happened to be a really rich green, and that helps them blend into the forest that they live in because they're in the center of the island in the deep forest. Then we have the Atlantic, and those are browns and oranges. They're on the east coast of the island, and a lot of them are in urban environments sometimes. And then North Caribbean in the northern parts of the island, that's the one that I grew up seeing because I'm from the northern part of my island. And it has a really nice marbling to it as well. And then I have 2 more pictures of the crested anole and of the Dominican anole, just to show you the legs I was talking about. You can see how long those hind limbs are, and you can see the muscles, especially on this crested anole right here. It was definitely ready to jump away from us. As soon as I put it down, that's exactly what it did. And then we have the large-headed anole down here. Its head does look kind of big, so I get why it's named that. And it also is showing us a bit of leg. And then we have the striped foot anole right here.
Hey, Chelsea, we have a couple of questions real quick.
Go ahead.
Our first is, how was the invasive anole brought onto the island?
That's a good question. We think that it was brought to the island on a shipment of PVC in the early 2000s. So it's just like it hopped onto a boat from Puerto Rico. And then when the boat got here, it was like, oh, okay, we're getting off. I'm going to get off too.
Interesting. And I guess enough came over that they were able to spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They breed pretty quickly. They're also aggressive. They're more aggressive than our native anole. So it was kind of easy for it to bully it out of places that it normally occupied and just push them back into the forest and the trees, because the crested anole does in fact prefer like towns and urban environments.
All right, that's very interesting. And then I actually have my a personal question for me. I can't help but notice on some of these pictures that it looks like some of these anoles are wearing like leashes, like on this Anoles oculatus. Is that true?
So what that is the lasso that I use to catch it. That's how we catch these anoles. It's basically a fishing pole and some fishing line, and you tie a little lasso on the end of it, and you extend your pole. You kind of like get into a good position where the anole won't see you to get scared, and you get the loop around its neck, and you pull quickly. It doesn't hurt the anole because it's just their own weight holding them, and I get them in hand really quickly. But yeah, so that's how you get a hold of them. So sometimes they're really jumpy. So while I'm waiting for them to calm down before I take it off, that's when I get to take a picture. And as soon as I like they calm down, they stop jumping around, the lasso comes off. That long piece that you're seeing is like what I pull to like get it off of it. So as soon as I pull it, it just loosens and I can get it off of it and take its measurements and everything and let it go.
Well, that must be a very fun and interesting experience. Do you bait them with anything?
No, you just
Interesting.
walk around and hope you see them sitting out.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions we have for now. So thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Um, Next, let's talk about the grass bush anoles. They are small anoles with very long tails to help with balance. As the name suggests, they live in the grass and brush, um, and those are narrow surfaces. They have long hind limbs for jumping, and as you can see from this picture here, they really do have very long tails. Their tails can even be up to 3 times their body length. And so the surfaces that they live on explain why their body plan is the way that it is. It's easiest for movement on those types of surfaces. So on a really small surface, you're gonna wanna have shorter front limbs. And then when you're jumping from branch to branch, having those long hind limbs helps. And then because of how the grass can be, how it sways sometimes, you're gonna wanna have a longer tail to help counterbalance when you like jump onto it. On the left is the 5-striped grass anole, and it does have 5 stripes. We can't see the other side. It has an orange dewlap. And then the Puerto Rican bush anole, which has these yellow sides. So these ones are mostly brown. Next is Anoles fugitivus. That is the Moa anole. And you can see how long its tail is as well, right here. Then the Bahoruco long-snouted anole, and that one's sitting on a leaf. I don't remember which plant this is to give you a size comparison. But then we have the blue-eyed grass bush anole. I couldn't find a good picture where you could actually see how blue their eyes are, but most of the species do have really blue eyes. And then we have the twig anole. So they are strange little anoles because of how their bodies look. They're very skinny and they have short limbs. And like the grass bush anoles, they live on narrow surfaces. They don't jump often, if at all. They prefer walking along twigs and surfaces to hunt for their prey items. And you can see right here from the one on the left how close its body is to the twig that it's sitting on, that's not because it's like hunkering down. That's just how short its limbs are. It's just really close to it naturally. Here's another one in a palm right now, and he's a little gray, but you can also see from their patterning, they also look like tree bark, like how the trunk anoles do, so they can blend into the twigs that they're sitting on. And this one on the right is the Cuban twig anole. Here we have another look at the first twig anole, the Escambray twig anole, all the way on the right. This one has a bit of a different coloring, but you can see how much it looks like a twig right there sleeping. It's like sleeping really close to some flowers, holding on to them, looking like it's part of that plant. Then we have the Jamaican twig anole. That one is also sleeping, and you can see how close it is to that branch, how much it blends in. Anoles occultus is the dwarf anole, and it's on someone's hand, so you can't see it on a plant right now, but it is close enough to this picture that you can tell that, like, if it was sitting on a little twig somewhere, it would be very hard to spot. And this anole is so tiny. Okay,
So
now,
Chelsea, real quick, I know you mentioned the size of the larger anoles getting up to 20 centimeters. How about the smallest? How large are they usually?
yeah, I tried to find a measurement for that one, and for some reason I couldn't find it. I'll try to look it up again and see if I can tweet it or I can add it to something. But I don't know. I don't know why I couldn't find that one.
Can you remind me the name of the anole?
Anoles, the small one, Anoles occultus, the dwarf anole.
Okay, I'll see if I can put something in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last section here, fittingly, we can't wrap it all up in a bow. Sometimes nature doesn't follow her own rules, but I feel like it's more like we are trying to assign rules to nature, and that's just not how it is. Nature just does what it does, and we're the ones trying to figure it out. So, mainland anoles. The Caribbean isn't the only place that has anoles, and not every anole fits neatly into those ecomorph categories. Anoles on the mainland have different morphological diversity from the Caribbean, so they don't often fit in those descriptions. Those descriptions are specifically made because of the extremes that the Caribbean anoles live at. The mainland anoles don't have those extremes, so they don't fit into those categories, but they are still incredibly diverse, and maybe someday we'll have classifications for them with more research. There is a lot more research that needs to be done on mainland anoles as well. And this one right here that I have in the bottom is one of my favorites. It's Anoles equatorialis. That's just the equatorial anole because it lives like somewhere near the equator. And you can see that it has a really bright coloring and pattern going on, even on its dewlap. Most dewlaps are very unique, but this one is, I think, one of the most unique that I've ever seen. And like I said, it's one of my favorites. I actually drew this anole, and I'll show you that later. And we have some more mainland anoles. On the left is one of my favorites. It's the blue anole. It is the only pure blue lizard in the world. That means that it doesn't have any patterning. It's just blue. This lizard it's just blue. And it is found on Isla Gorgona, which is an island off the coast of Colombia. And that's the only place it is, so it's endemic to Isla Gorgona. It's actually threatened, and it's hard to do research on this anole. The times researchers see it is usually when it comes down from the tree, and then there's basilisks, which are another kind of lizard that live on that island as well. And they eat this lizard whenever it comes down and they can catch it. But it mostly lives up in the canopy. And it's hard to spot this lizard sometimes because it kind of blends into the sky. I think that's why I think it's hard to spot, because it might be blending into the sky when you look up into the canopy looking for it. That is like a really like bright sky blue. Then in the middle is the Pinocchio anole. As you can see from its nose, that's where it got its name. We thought that this anole was extinct because it lived like in a really specific part of the forest and nobody had seen it for a while. And then somebody saw it again recently, and then they saw a couple more, and here it is. There are two other anoles that have long noses like that, and they're just two other species that I couldn't quite get a good picture of. And then we have the yellow-tongued anole, and this guy is a terrestrial anole. That means it lives on the ground. It doesn't climb trees, it's just on the ground. It will scamper over fallen branches and tree trunks, but it does not typically climb trees. It's running between the leaf litter on the forest floor. And its pattern is perfect for that. I couldn't get a high quality picture to show you where it's like blended into the leaf litter, but it really does disappear like how the bark anoles do. And then it has a really bright dewlap. Somebody that lives in leaf litter that's trying to hide, when it's time to scare away other males, which is what the dewlaps are used for, to scare away other males or to attract mates, you want to have a really bright dewlap to flash at them to do that. Other exceptions include a couple of West Indian anoles, actually. False chameleon anoles are a marvel. They are almost identical to true chameleons. They even have limited independent eye movement. If you've ever seen a chameleon, you know how they move each eye independently of each other. They're also referred to as snail-eating anoles. Anoles barbori, which is the Hispaniolan hopping anole. It is another terrestrial anole, and that one's in the Caribbean. This one hops across the ground. There are aquatic anoles. Some of them are in the Caribbean, some of them are in the mainland. Then we have Barchi, which is the western cliff anole in Cuba, and it is a rock-dwelling anole. And then Anoles lucius, which is the cave anole, also in Cuba, and it is a cave-dwelling anole. Here we have five of the species of false chameleon anoles that exist. You can see their little like casks. So if you've seen a veiled chameleon, then you know they have that little like triangle on their head. It's called a casque, and these anoles all have some version of that, and some size. And you can see that they have dewlaps, which is something chameleons do not have. And then you can see that one right there is munching on a snail right now. So they have these flat molars, the teeth in the back of their mouth, that help them to crush those shells. They are also able to eat hard-shelled beetles this way. Next, we have those other anoles I was telling you about. I don't have a picture of Anoles barbori, the Hispaniolan hopping anole. It does look a lot like the anole that lives in the leaf litter that I showed you earlier, the yellow-tongued one. They do look pretty similar because they both live in a similar environment. Far left, starting off, is Anoles aquaticus. This is one of the better known, somewhat, aquatic anoles. And you can see underwater, it looks like it has a silver skin, but out of the water, it has this really pretty patterning. It has some blue to it. And this little bubble right here acts kind of like a scuba tank for it. And we need to do more research to find out exactly how it does that and some more details on how it uses it. But right now, this is what we know. And Lindsay Swerk, who took that photo, is one of the researchers who is working on that anole right now. Then we have the cave-dwelling anole, and you can see it's pretty pale, but it does still have some patterning. And on the top here, its eye is closed, but the skin is translucent. And researchers think that it uses this translucent skin kind of like sunglasses when it comes out of the cave to prevent that harsh light from hurting its eyes right away while it's still adjusting to it. And then we have the Western Cliff Anole, Anoles barchi, and this one it's a rock-dwelling anole. It lives all over the rocks. It hops around, and it has beautiful blues. It doesn't try hiding in trees. It's just a rock dweller. And it's also really amazing anole. And it has long legs as well, so it definitely does some hopping. So that's the end of my talk. Now you know, now you have a better understanding and appreciation for what I think are the best lizards in the world. And I hope you'll be able to join me on Thursdays at 6 Central to learn even more, because on my Twitter account, and I'm also hoping to do this on my Instagram as well, I teach people about a new anole every week. So at 6, I put out a new tweet about them. I also do a post that same time on Anole Anoles. That's an Anole website I'm a contributor to as well. Are there any questions?
What's your question?
Oh yeah.
Hi.
Excuse me. Hi.
Tell your name.
My name is Hazel,
Hi,
and
people.
and my cool thing about it is that the weird thing about it was the one that was eating it. The smells are like all like crunched together.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it eats the shells too, but I know that it is able to like break the shells and just like munch on it and eat them. It's really cool. I've seen one video of it. Maybe you can find a video of it as well.
Okay.
Weird and cool to look at.
There's another thing I want to show you. It's not
Mhm.
about nose, but it's this rock I found
Mhm.
by my house, and it's really pretty.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is cool. That's a good rock. I actually have a lot of rocks myself. I have one that I keep next to me. I have rose quartz.
Ooh, we have one of those too.
Rose quartz.
Nice.
Well,
We have one too. Can I?
do you have another question about anoles?
It's up here.
I have a rock to contribute to.
Oh, look, that's a good one. Is that amethyst?
That is amethyst.
Nice.
Look.
I have a lot of rocks.
Can you tell me?
Awesome.
Rocks are nice.
We love
I
rock.
have a lot.
We love rocks in this Zoom call right now. We're all rock fans.
Excuse me. My pet is actually a bug and a dog.
Nice. I actually have a chameleon as a pet, but she's being grumpy right now. I think she wants to be left alone.
What are you doing?
Trying to find another one of these rocks.
So as we're it was wonderful, and as Hazel's getting out some more rocks to show us, we do actually have some questions in the chat too.
Mhm.
One of them was, what else do the anoles eat? Like what kind of variety of their digestion is?
Okay, so most anoles eat insects only, but there are some anoles that also are nectivorous. That means they feed on the nectar from plants. Some anoles eat fruit as well. There are anoles that are carnivorous, which means they eat other anoles. They eat other small anoles. Anoles cristatellus, the invasive anole on my island, the crested anole, it does that a lot. it will eat the small anoles of its own species or of the eyed anole. see. What else? Oh, the largest anole, Anoles equestris, the Cuban night anole. Sometimes it will even eat small birds.
Wow, that's impressive. I guess the ones that eat the nectar can be pollinators at times.
I think so. Completely accidentally though.
Interesting.
Green anole is one that likes eating nectar.
Hmm. And then we have another question, which is just how are anoles distributed throughout the world, and what about in the United States?
So in the United States, it's the southeastern states that have the green anole. So like Florida, Carolina, and then they've like moved into Texas because that is where that's where the temperature is right for them. There are invasive anoles in Florida because Florida seems to be a hub for invasive animals, and they do really well in the temperature there and the climate that they have there because it is pretty close to the tropical temperatures where they all seem to come from. As far as the rest of the world, all of the islands have some kind of anole. If it's not an endemic anole, it's an anole from another island that has found their way there. I'm sure there's like tiny exceptions, like small islands people will travel to very often that don't have anoles. But then in Central America, like in Mexico, let's see, some parts of South America, so the northern parts of South America, you find anoles there.
Just to make sure I understood,
That,
how many?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering the number of species that are in the United States. Is it just 2 or?
So there's one species that is native.
Only 1. Okay.
But in Florida now there are probably like 10 species of anoles going on in America right now.
But 9 of them are not native?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually could be more than that because I know there's a lot that have been popping up. Part of that is because of like pet trade. People bring anoles here and then they get tired of them as pets and release them where they're not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the case of quite a few animals in Florida that aren't supposed to be there.
So I think Hazel has something she wants to share with us.
Mm-hmm. Where is she?
Yep, there she is.
Yes, I do.
Hi.
And this is I have this, a mantis.
Oh, I think she got muted.
Yeah, I think you got unmuted real quick, Hazel. Oh, there we go.
I have the praying mantis case, coral like uncolored. I got the coral from Grenada, and I have the manta ray or shark mermaid purse, and also this, an amethyst.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
look at that.
Here's the amethyst too.
Also had this, a shell that has water shells.
Nice. I like that. I actually, our biology department had a praying mantis for a while, and then her egg case disappeared. Like I saw her eggs in there one day, and the next day it was just gone. I don't know what happened. They didn't hatch. I've never found baby praying mantises in the wild before. Just only those empty egg cases that you have. That's really cool. I think the next one that I see too. You have
Maybe
a collection. You want to be a biologist?
What do you want to be when you get older?
I want to be a bug scientist.
Nice.
Entomologist.
Yeah, we need more of those.
We do. That
So
is
exciting.
amazing. I met an entomologist and she is one of my inspirations. She studies flies specifically.
Me?
Fruit fly.
Oh, fruit flies.
Yeah, any fly. She wrote a book about flies actually.
You know, I see
Erica McAllister.
question.
Excuse me. Still,
Mhm.
I have a Madagascar hissing cockroach.
Oh no.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Is that your pet?
Yes, it's my pet. And I
Hmm.
also have this toy.
Awesome.
That
I
is
see a
amazing.
question. Judy
Mhm.
wanted
I
to
like
ask,
that.
how are dewlaps distributed around the world? And what about in the US? Or how are anoles distributed around the world and in the US?
I think I just
I
asked the
just
question. Yeah. Sorry,
yeah,
Mom.
I just answered the Anole one, but the dewlaps, the dewlap colors are species dependent, and there are some species as well that have small dewlaps, like Anoles agassiae. That is a rock-dwelling anole that lives only on this one rocky island. The males and females both have tiny dewlaps, but there are some species that have really large dewlaps, like the equatorial anole that I showed you earlier, and Anolis chloris. That is another one that has a really large dewlap. The color of it is dependent on the species, and also I think where they live, because they want you want to have a dewlap that's visible, and those with the visible dewlaps are going to be the ones that pass their traits on. So that's what you're gonna end up with, brighter colored dewlaps as time goes on. So for Anolis oculatus, actually, this is kind of a good page to be on. The stickers that I draw, I do representations of Anole dewlaps with popsicles. And on the left is Anolis carolinensis, that's the American green anole. And this one has a pink dewlap, but because some of them have some purple pigmentation in them, there are populations in Hawaii that have ended up with lilac dewlaps. There are populations in Florida that are actually a subspecies with gray dewlaps. In the middle is oculatus, and that's my native anole, the Dominican anole, and it has an orange dewlap. So the dewlap color is just dependent on the species, dewlap color and size.
We actually do have another question, but first I just want to mention just how impressed I am hearing about the whole catching the anoles with the lassos. I used to work with animals, and we had an anole, and my boss's son let it escape, and my goodness, catching that thing was it was a time. It took a week, but we got it. So I'm just
Yeah.
very impressed at the ability to lasso at an anole.
It is very hard to hand catch them. If you are pretty skilled at it, then it gets easier. I have hand caught anoles, but it's definitely not something a beginner can do.
I
They
couldn't imagine.
are fast. They are
Yes.
so fast.
But in regards to our questions, this one's a very interesting one. Why do you think anoles are the greatest lizards in the world?
I think anoles are the best lizards in the world because of the adaptive radiation I was talking about earlier. They are able to change and adapt according to their environment. So we end up with all these different species that are able to do so many different things. They're even able to copy chameleons. We have 4 different species of aquatic anoles. Those are anoles that have learned how to be in the water for some amount of time. We have the cave dwelling anole. They're able to do it all, and they have a wide range of colors and dewlap colors as well to go along with it. So many species in the world. There's so much that we can learn from them, especially regarding like their topaz, like how people study geckos for their topaz. We can study anoles for that as well. Also, they're just cute, I think.
That's a very good reason.
Yeah.
They were definitely very attractive looking. All the pictures were amazing. We do have another question specific to the dewlap, and then I know Hazel has another one. Do they have the capacity to retract the dewlap?
Yes, so they're able to contract and retract it. Sorry, expand and retract the dewlap. They have a muscle. I forgot the name. Sorry. Um, I should have tried to find an X-ray for you, but there is like a muscle that's like here that they can like expand and retract the dewlap with. So that is completely up to them when they expand and retract their dewlap. That is a voluntary action.
So interesting. That's all the questions in the chat. I know Hazel's raising her hand, so I'll let them unmute and ask another question.
Hello?
They're still muted at the moment. Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Just to say, I'm sorry, but I have to go for dinner.
Oh,
It's really
okay.
a kind of a long class for me, so
Mhm.
it's almost in the middle of the night, so it's kind of hard
Okay.
to wait for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I hope you learned a lot and you had fun.
Yeah, it was very fun. And I also have this kind of glow up blue spider. It's really hard
I
to
really
make it glow up.
Okay,
I
say
know.
goodnight.
Good night.
Good night. Enjoy dinner.
I'll do a class
Bye,
with
Hazel.
you again. Do a class with you again.
Yeah.
Everyone, you know.
Great to see you, Hazel. It was lovely to have you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for coming.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's the background you have. You have a little.
My Anole stickers, yeah, you can get some if you want. That's my website right there, my store, chelseaherbst.redbubble.com.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going to have to get some too.
Yeah. So thanks,
And
everybody.
I'll be adding more soon, I hope. If I can get them.
Great.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. It has been wonderful to have you. And it was wonderful to hear Hazel as well. I hope you all enjoyed her interactions as much as I did. Have a great night.
Well, Sarah, now we actually have one quick question again.
Okay.
Just really quickly on the dewlap, asking if they control it with a muscle, or is it similar to like an air inflation with frogs and singing?
No, it's a muscle. I really let me see if I can find this really quickly. I know that there's an X-ray picture of it somewhere, but it is in fact a muscle that controls it, that helps them expand and retract. Oh, look at that. That was fast.
Nice.
So if I can get that here, so you can see right here, different muscles are in it, and here's the dewlap itself. So
I'm going to put a link to that exact picture in the chat real quickly if anyone wants to be able to look at it. To that same picture.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last question. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Chelsea. It was wonderful. Thank you.